Hello there. Recently, the MINCAM president, Dr. Robert Ndifo, gave the green light for us to introduce SAGI into MINCAM family. And SAGI is a product which has one and only one purpose. SAGI has a sole purpose, as I just said. It is to facilitate the repatriation of the remains of a deceased member to Cameroon. That's to the airport in Douala, or wherever that be, and then to the desired destination, probably the village in Cameroon, for burial. As I want to insist, is for deceased member, got to be a member of SAGI to benefit in this program. What is SAGI all about? Greetings to you all viewers. Greetings to you all MINCAM family members. My name is Venantius Ngwanya, and within the next few minutes, I will try to break down what SAGI is all about, up to and including its origins and where it is today. I will just narrate a kind of a short story to help illustrate this thing very, very simply. We all know that the burial or the wherewithal of a deceased person in any part of the diaspora is always a problem for every Cameroonian community. And so some friends in Washington, D.C. area started thinking. They have been through the same problem that we go through here in MINCAM all the time, wondering what to do, how to contribute monies, and and whatnot. So they came up with a wonderful idea whereby they could create a fund. The idea was very simple. Why don't we create a fund, kind of a bucket, and put in some money so that when we lose one of our members, anybody who dies, instead of trying to bother ourselves, to tear ourselves up and down to get the monies, we just go into that fund, pull out the money, and ship these cups to Cameroon. And then we'll find a way to fill back the bucket. It was just a simple concept that created the birth of SAGI. SAGI actually is called Solidarité Agissante, which is abbreviated SAGI. Creators prefer to translate that as active solidarity. And it's an apolitical NGO. It's a non-profit, and it was founded in Washington, D.C. in August of 2009. Just as a backdrop, it was in 2008, 1 year before they founded it, that they had this problem of trying to create a fund. And they came together, and the Washington, D.C. area, for those of us who do not know, is kind of there's lots of states that are cluttered around that same area. We have Maryland, which is like, the nucleus. You have the north end of Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, the east end of West Virginia, and the south end of Pennsylvania, all in the Washington, D.C. area. So these sharp heads came together and, to cut a long story short, they finally came up with 500 members. 500 members who bought this concept of creating a fund in order to repatriate the corpse of our fellow members who happen to die in the U.S. And the whole idea was very simple. They taxed each member to come up with $40. So we got 500 members times $40. That gave $20,000. And what did they do with this money? They just simply created an account in the bank, which is the bucket of money I was talking about earlier. They created a small office, within themselves, a president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And SAGI was born. Just as simple as that, with a bank account with a balance of 20 grand. And that is when they went ahead and, as I said before, registered it as a non-profit in Washington, D.C. in August of 2009. So, how does SAGI actually work, and how does that relate to us here in MINCAM family? Very simply, again, let's visit what is happening in Washington, D.C. area. In the year 2010, of those 500 members that we mentioned before that are in SAGI in the Washington, D.C. area, they unfortunately lost a member. One member passed away in 2010. So what did they do? The funeral home cost was $13,000, thereabouts. And they realized that that was, the funeral home does everything up to and including shipping the corpse to Cameroon. Now, from the Douala airport, this corpse needs to go to the village. So SAGI now gives that family, through the SAGI president, $2,000 to help carry the corpse from Douala to the village for eventual burial. That is a total of $15,000. So the members, the 500 members, had to come up with this amount. So instead of bugging each member, say, please, can you contribute? No, they just went into that account. Remember we said they had 20,000 in the account before? They pulled out the $15,000. That's what I'm actually trying to explain over here. They went into the bank account, which had $20,000. They pulled out $15,000. What was remaining in that bank account? $5,000. Now, they have $15,000 to come up with. So what did they do? They simply divide the $15,000 that was spent, divided by the 500 members, that gives $30 each. And these members have up to 1 month to contribute the $30 a piece to make up the $15,000 that was used up. So the balance was $5,000 after sending that corpse to Cameroon. Within a month, the members came up with $15,000. Ta-da! We're back to $20,000 in the account. As simple as that. That is how SAGI works. So as illustrated in the last expose, the Washington DC area group within a month had another $20,000 into that account, and just sitting there waiting for, unfortunately, the next calamity. And if there's nothing, nobody dies in 2 years, in 3 years, thank God, the money just sits there and waiting for the next trouble. But in Washington DC, and Dallas has now formed a group of 100 members each. So, what are we now? Let's update things. SAGI, Texas, 100 members. Washington DC, 500 members. And guess what? From the time that Washington DC sent a corpse to Cameroon to the time that the friend in Texas learned about this whole thing and developed and created 100-member group, Washington DC was increasing in numbers. They had 464 new additional members to the corps. So at one stage, SAGI, both Texas and Washington DC, had 1,064 members. Very, 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 very impressive. Now, what happened? Again, death is something that we cannot prevent. We lost somebody in Texas, who is also a member of this Texas group. Again, I would like to emphasize, please, this is extremely for illustrative purposes. And this is not exactly what happened, but it just begs the point to bring the point across as best as possible. So a member died in Texas. Texas informed the mother branch in Washington, D.C. that unfortunately we have a death. One of our members is dead. As I said before, those members, they are all in a database in Washington, D.C. So each member has a special identification number, which SAGI prefers to call matricule number. So Texas will be informing DC that we lost matricule number, this person's name is this. And what happened after that person died? Remember we said that Washington DC said, please, if you have a death, we'll send somebody to come and actually, double check and condole with you guys, the death of a fellow Cameroonian. So, as simple as that, this is what happened. The funeral home cost, again, $13,000. $2,000 to the family to ship the body from Douala Airport to the village for burial. Remember, some people had to fly in from Washington, D.C. to witness what is happening in Dallas-Fort Worth. That airplane ticket was $960. Total amount spent, $15,960. Again, as in the past example, this amount has to be shared between 1,064 members. $15,960 divided by 1,064 members is $15 per head. $15 per head. What did they do? They just went into the bucket, into the accounts, pulled out $15,960 and took care of business. And within 1 month, all 1,064 members had to pay in $15 each. Simple and easy. Nothing complicated about SAGI. That's the magic of it. As a matter of fact, when this friend in Dallas came to DC for the first time, one of his first comments was, this is too good to be true. And the guys in DC said they've heard that before. So guys, this program is so simple. That's one of that's the magic about SAGI, the simplicity of it all. The easier it is to understand, the easier it is to decide to participate. I'd like to fast forward by telling you the magic that is happening in SAGI today. After Texas, a lot has happened. Today, SAGI boasts a nationwide membership of more than 1,800 Cameroonians. They are from over 48 organizations, and they spread through Maryland, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, California, Georgia, and Kentucky. So if we use the past example that we had, a moment ago of disbursing $15,960 to send a loved one back to Cameroon, we're talking of $15,960 divided by 1,800 members. The amount per member is $8.87. Isn't that wonderful? So imagine that you had $20 to your name and we had a calamity in our hands. All you had to make up was $8.87. So this is our call, Minnesota. MINCAM, let's come in, guys. It's our turn to join. We are trying to get $20 per member. As we said before, your membership number will come after you pay in your $20 as a member. And MINCAM, as the subscribing group, as I said before, SAGI already through groups, will be given a certificate from the mother branch that MINCAM is part of SAGI. And when you give your $20, it takes maximum 2 weeks for your membership to kick in after you put in that payment. Normally, as we explained before, when we receive that payment, we'll open our account here in Minnesota. We'll designate signatories to the account, and go into that account all the way necessary. And of course, joining SAGI is very, very voluntary. It's up to you, you and your family members, to decide to join SAGI. But it's a wonderful product that I think is advisable for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to say that, one of the tricks that the guys used in Washington, D.C. to come up with 500 members was something a little bit unorthodox. They challenged each other, those of them who were founding it, to meet their friends who were not trying to join and tell them in their face, look, my good friend, you know what? If you, your wife, your child, or anybody dies in your family, hey, I'll come down and I'll get my good drink, but you won't see a red cent if you decide not to join this thing. I don't like that approach.
Mr. Venantius Ngwanya, I would like to take this opportunity in thanking you for bringing this program to Minnesota. And I was one of the first people to actually learn about SAGI when it started in Washington, D.C. From that standpoint, I have a few questions that I would like to ask you today, and I would like them to be addressed so that we do some clarification to our potential membership here in Minnesota. The first question would be, we have seasonal visitors from Cameroon who visit the US here during the summer. For example, our parents. Can they be members of SAGI?
Absolutely, yes. That is the beauty of this program. That person comes to visit us, grandma, grandpa, visitor, friend, you name it. Once he's here in the US, one, identify with a group here in the US, because SAGI deals only with groups. Now, SAGI is more lenient than I even thought. Okay. I thought that you have to actually perhaps register as a MINCAM member. Not absolutely. MINCAM just has to recognize that this is somebody we know. That's all SAGI cares about. That goes the same for some of our brothers and sisters who are here and who are still struggling to put their papers together. So there's some programs out there that you must have your social security number and all kind of official documentation to affiliate with. But with SAGI, we don't need that. All we need is your name and your date of birth. End of story.
And this is an opportunity for those out there without proper documentation in the US, especially in Minnesota, to take advantage of this program and join.